YouTube, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel. We have finished our stream and yeah, we are doing our prediction ban list for the month of November. Now, as you might know, we already have a ban list that's coming end of the month, and that is the 31st. So the Fusion Destiny on 3 copies. The starter, which is pretty good on 3 copies. The branded opening to 2 copies was kind of significant for branded players. And mass change too for an easy access to Dark Law. Regardless, we're doing this for the month of November because end of the month ban list isn't really that great, so it's typically minor. But one of which we're gonna expect too much is by the start of the week for the next month, because that's usually the new selection packs comes in. So without further ado, as you might see here, our prediction ban list is composed of unlimited, limited, and semi-limited. There are no forbidden cards because that's what I've experienced so far, and what I believe in is that Master Duel's diversity in the meta is okay. It's pretty healthy, so I don't see the need to put any card that is that needs to be banned. But tell me in the comment section below if you disagree with me with regards to that comment. But anywho, let's start off this prediction ban list with the unlimited section. Okay, so for the unlimited section, we have 5 cards, and we already placed this one beforehand. But with an addition of Diameter. Now, Diameter is still a pretty strong card for Mathmex. Nevertheless, people are still using this on 1 to 2 copies, so it doesn't really matter if you limit this to 1 copy. Although an easy access though, but nevertheless, Mathmex is not really the go-to deck nowadays, but it is still pretty strong up against the meta. So maybe having this back to 2 copies or having this removed from the ban list to 3 copies might be an okay choice for Master Duel. Then we're still gonna put Gamma back to 3 copies, really significant in a format where hand traps is very common, or a majority of hand traps is very common. 3rd copy of Gamma might make it more significant for decks that rely on synchro summoning. That would be pretty nice. Really significant against Tenpais if ever they don't have the field spell activated and they're trying to summon a buttload of monsters on the field without the field spell. We're gonna put Sprite Blue and Sprite Jet still here because I did not expect that starter would be back to 3 copies. That is one of the strongest starters for a Sprite deck. Nevertheless, it doesn't really do that much, but adds more consistency with the deck. I do think that adding additional consistency with the sprites might make them better. Either Sprite Jet or Sprite Blue, or one of the frogs. It's either one of those. But I do think one of the frogs might make this deck pretty good tier deck if ever. Then lastly, we have the Emergency Teleport, really good card. I think the majority, or the deck that would prioritize mostly with the E-Tally is the Ritual Beast, which is one of the strongest decks nowadays. It's a very convoluted deck that it's rarely played in the meta. So nevertheless, E-Tally might be pretty good as well for some rogue decks like Punks, things like that. Regardless, pretty good for a 3rd copy in the game. So that is our unlimited section. Let's move on with our semi-limited. Okay, so for our semi-limited, we have a couple or a buttload of cards here. So one of which is, I do think I'm not going to add both of these cards for semi-limited because that would actually nerf the deck to an extent. But having one of these cards as semi-limited would be pretty nice. Lessening the consistency of the Yubels before Fiendsmith comes along might be the right choice. Because once Fiendsmith comes, this deck would actually be a pretty good deck. It is already a pretty good deck. By having Phantom to 2, Spirit Case to 2, it doesn't really hurt the deck too much. But if you have Fiendsmith alongside those semi-limited cards, it still won't matter. Yubel would still be a pretty good deck up against the meta, even way better than Tenpais or even Fire King Snake Eyes. This is still going to be a pretty strong deck once Fiendsmith is going to be in the game. So having one of these cards to semi-limited might signify a change in the meta, but not to an extent that it would be so powerful. So either one of these might be a really good choice to have on 2 copies. But as long as one of those cards will be semi-limited before Fiendsmith, it's pretty good. It's still going to be okay though. And also, I would like to see a 2nd copy of Tier Elements Kashtira because we got Pillarino removed, but still it didn't matter because Tier Elements is still a pretty strong deck to play in the meta. And I've dealt or played with this so far on a 60 card pile, on a 40 card pile. it's still pretty strong without even the Pillarino. So at least give more consistency with the deck. I'm not gonna add the other tier element monsters like the Sharon and even the Merly back, because that is one of the most powerful cards as well for the tier element lineup. Third copy of Sharon, very powerful, so no. Tier element Kashtira might be a good choice as well, just to have this card dumped to the graveyard, much more easier. And that way it's much more frequent that you'll see more mills to the graveyard. Then we have Pot of Duality. Now, I do hate stun decks in general, but in the meta nowadays, or in the format nowadays where Spiral Summon is very common, I do think that normal summon needs to be like prioritized as well. Although this can be beneficial for Floanderies, but I don't think they would be a pretty good deck nowadays in a format where hand traps or board breakers is in. Yeah, either this or the Extravagance. The Duality is pretty straightforward. Extravagance, there is gonna be, it's a high risk for 2 cards, and it can easily be Ash as well. Duality, you know, it's just a consideration putting this back to 2 copies, but nevertheless, pretty good card on back or back to 2 copies. In regards to Foolish Burial Goods, if ever they would place this back to 2 copies, because Tier Elements is still very powerful. It's more consistent enough in gaining more cards to the graveyard, like a copy of Rainbow Bridge, and then gaining access to getting the Horus monsters to your field. Lightning Storm as well, a pretty good card. One of the strongest board breakers nowadays. Needs to be semi-limited. There are a ton of board breakers that we have currently in Master Duel. Having this 2 copies might be okay though, so yeah, it's still pretty good on 2 copies nevertheless. And also, you still have 2 copies of Raigeki accessible for the game. So, Pressure Planet Raid Soft, I do think Kashtiras might be beneficial for this, or would benefit quite a lot for this, and also Tier Elements. Oh, maybe I'll remove that one though. But yeah, these are the cards for the semi-limited section. I'm not sure about the Pressure Planet Raid Soft. It might be a broken card once added back to 2 copies. Nevertheless, that is our semi-limited. Let's move on with our limited section. Okay, so for our limited section, our last list for this video, we have a couple. So basically, remove or place the barriers into 1 copy. That would make everything happy, or everyone happy, I would say. I think we lack one more barrier, the barrier for the water. I mean, stun decks are one of the best decks so far, going first or forced to go first. At least limit these cards here because they are unfun to play. I do think that players or stun players would actually disagree with me, but honestly, combo players or meta players would actually agree with me, okay? So this on 1 copy would be kinda okay. Ponyx on 1 copy, I do think Fire Kings needs a bit more hits to their lineup, but nevertheless, having a copy of Ponyx might actually signify the end of the reign of the Fire Kings, if ever. Either one, either Volcanics or Fire King Ponyx would be limited. Would still be okay though. It doesn't really matter because usually people are playing this on 1 to 2 copies, same as Volcanics. Volcanics, I think majority of the player are using this on 2 copies. So either one of these cards on 1 copy would be kind of significant though. So it's either one of these cards. Then we have Barrier Abyss, the Inferno, the Torrent, the Drought, and of course the Heavens. That is one of the barriers. Also, Clockwork Knight needs to be limited because it's a pretty stupid card for stun decks. Super Poly, really strong card still. I would still advise this on 1 copy as a pretty good board breaker, and the ability to uninteract with this card alone. Although I really love this card, but still pretty strong card in the meta. Set rotation might be a consideration as well. I'm not sure about this to be added back. Still very powerful with the access to Chicken Game. And like I said in my previous videos or the prediction ban list, as long as Chicken Game is in the field or in the game, I don't think set rotation would be in. But if we remove Chicken Game, this might be back. So that's pretty good. Semi-limit Spell Fragrance, really stupid card for stuns. And why is Macrocosmos still on 3 copies, by the way? So you have this limited. It's easy enough. You already have most of the floodgating cards on 1 copy. Why not these cards alone? So okay, that is basically our prediction ban list for the month of November. Tell me your thoughts on the prediction ban list. If you have anything to add, comment down below. Any violent reactions, comment down below. I'll see you guys in the next video. Keep safe, good luck. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. Oh yeah, check out the stream by tomorrow. See you guys then. Bye-bye.